Now, hi friends. Now, today in this video, I'll address a problem that I see a lot of students message to me after they give a real exam. Like after a student appears for a real competitive exam, I see a lot of students message to me by asking, sir, how to avoid silly mistakes in the exam. And these are the mistakes that he has done in the exam, which are the questions in which he knew the answer, he had studied about the concept, he had all the idea that was required to solve that question clearly, but he makes some mistakes in the real exam that is called as silly mistake. So, and this is a very frequently asked question in the world of competitive exams where people are appearing for multiple choice question based exam. They come back after the exam, they come back a little happy that okay, I've done a good exam, but by the time day one, day two discussions are done with other people who have appeared for the same exam, they realize that they have made mistakes on things, even on things that they thought that they know, and they are doing mistakes which are called as silly mistakes. And if I look at the pyramid of the score that you create in an exam, the major chunk of the questions is that you would that will give you the rank would be the easy question, the basic questions that you have studied. Then there will be a questions level which are like moderately tough. Then there will be a level which are very tough. And this is how a pyramid of our rankers is formed. A good ranker would get majority of the easy or the direct questions right, a vast majority of the moderate right, and some of the tough questions right to create a pyramid. While people who don't get a good rank in a competitive exams are usually the one who have and you would think that they are not getting the tough questions right, but the reality is that people who don't get a good rank or they don't get selected in a competitive exam are the one who are lacking at the bottom of the pyramid. And what is that bottom of the pyramid? That is the topics, that is the chapters, that is the things, that concepts that you have been studying, you know them, but you make mistakes in the exam, and that is what is called as silly mistakes. And coming back to the real point is how to avoid silly mistakes. To understand how to avoid them, we need to know why we make them. Okay. Now, suppose there is a topic that I have studied really well, and I know it, then why am I doing it wrong in the exam? The reason number one, I think, is lack of revision. Lack of revision means that although I know a concept, but I have not revisited that concept again and again. So I somehow have a superficial idea about it, but I do not know the depth of it, and I have not seen it again and again. Now, what happens is any concept that you learn for one time, but then if you do it again and again, gradually it becomes a habit, and once it becomes a habit, it comes on your spinal level and you stop making mistakes. So let me point out to you. Number one reason for making mistakes, silly mistakes, is lack of revision. And how to counter that? How to counter that is to draw a line. For example, if you're targeting an exam in January, you need to draw a line somewhere in November that, okay, beyond this point, I will not look at new resources. I will not go after new things. I will not look at, keep buying new stuff. I will now, after the line has been drawn, I will revise things. And what is revision? Revision is high yield. Revision is where you have made notes all year long. You have made your class notes. You have marked some questions to be relooked. That is revision. You need to see them again so that the idea, the concept gets consolidated in your mind and you make lesser mistakes in the next exam. Second thing that I want you to know about silly mistakes is silly mistakes, they also happen when you get confused by choices. Let me explain. This is a big difference between the real exam and the exam that you see in your guidebooks and all the guest papers and the guidebooks that you keep buying. They have choices which have been formulated by a guidebook author. What is a guidebook author? Is usually a graduate or a postgraduate who has little experience into making an exam. And compare this with a team of examiners where every exam is made by multiple people contributing questions, then it is shuffled and then they create a paper. So the collective experience that the exam body puts versus a guidebook author is big. So what difference does that make? In a real exam, the choices are closer together. Okay, as compared to the guidebook where one of the answers is just abruptly sitting outside and saying, okay, I'm the answer. But in the real exam, the choices are closer together. So I want to share a secret with you. I have seen every good ranker in any competitive exam uses this skill. This skill is they read the question and they are able to read it. You have to practice it. They are able to read it in one go mindfully, noting the keywords in the question, and then before seeing the choices, they let the answer come to their mind and then they see the choices. Now what happens is, if it is a question which is at the bottom of the pyramid that you're supposed to know and that you're not supposed to make a mistake. So what you're doing here is you are letting the answer come to you before you see the choices. And then when you see the choices, you are able to see, okay, why the choices have been made, and you make the answer correct without getting confused. Some people, they rush on to question choices, and when they read the choices they get confused because the choices are closer together in a real exam. So the moral is, look at the question a fraction of a second, let the answer come to you, see the choices, you will always win. But my 2 cents into it is, please do not wait till the real exam to start practicing this. Please practice this in every mock test, grand test, subject test that we are giving you. Please practice this skill. Look at the question as if you are doing a quiz. What is the difference between quiz and a multiple choice question? In the quiz, a quiz master is asking you a question and you have to give the answer without any choices. What is the difference between fill in the blanks and multiple choice question? Fill in the blanks, there are no choices. There is just a blank that you have to fill up. So I hope you see, look at each MCQ that you are practicing in a test like a fill in the blanks, like a quiz question. Let the answer come to you before you see the choices and then mark. Okay? And you will avoid a lot of silly mistakes and you will come back at a better score at the bottom of the pyramid. That number of questions which were doable. What is a silly mistake? Silly mistakes are doable questions that you're doing wrong because either you have not revised enough or you are getting confused by the choices. What is the third reason for silly mistakes? Third reason is slightly strange and I want you to understand it clearly. Each one of us who is giving a competitive exam gradually develops something which is called as gut feeling, or we can say our spinal instinct, or whatever. You know the question and you see the question, this is the answer, I know it. And that is correct. Every topper, every good ranker uses his gut feeling in the exam. What is gut feeling? Gut feeling is the voice of your subconscious. Now, for example, because of, I deal with, young medical graduates all the time. They put in 5.5 years in medical school. So all that you accumulate in your medical school by, rotating, then in your classes, in your coaching classes, that all is forming your subconscious. So when you see a question, even if you don't consciously recall, your subconscious, the voice of your subconscious, which is the gut feeling, says this is the answer. Okay? And you will hear, everybody will tell you that gut feeling is always correct, usually correct. That sounds good. Everything sounds good. But now look at a question where one of the choices has a strange name inside. Or, one of the choices is abnormally long. One of the choice in the question is a strange word. Now what happens is, we all have a primitive instinct in ourselves which is called as odd man out. You try and understand now that when I look at a question, I see something which is odd, something new word, some Greek Latin word that you have not heard before is written in the choice. And because of the evolution, we have all been programmed to spot the odd man for our own safety. So you spot the odd man and you think this is your gut feeling. That is not your gut feeling. That's not your subconscious speaking. That is an odd man out. So one of the reasons I have seen is students who are not experienced in giving exams, and if they avoid giving tests, what happens is on the day of the exam, they start thinking that this odd man out is the feeling of their subconscious. It is not the answer from the subconscious. It is just an odd man out. And often what happens is they are somehow attracted towards a strange name. I'll give you an example. In a recent exam, there was a question on pneumoperitoneum where you could see gross gas under diaphragm. It was like gas under diaphragm all around. You could not mistake it in your conscious mind. If I show you the X-ray, 100 people will get it right. But I saw in the exam, because one of the choices said eventration of diaphragm. Eventration is congenitally thin or membranous, a weak diaphragm which leads to an elevated diaphragm. But now come on and understand that if you are giving an exam and you don't know the meaning of the word eventration, you see it for the first time, your mind will respond by saying odd man out is eventration, odd man out is eventration. But that is not the answer. So are you able to see that sometimes you make a mistake in the exam, that you start judging the answer instead of thinking? Judging is free, it is easy to do. Thinking will require some effort, but I hope you are able to see my point of view now, that I have seen people who keep judging the odd man out, they end up being out of the exam race at all. I hope you understand. So, this is my summary here. My summary is, and this is unique, which is what I have learned, and I want to add weightage to what I have learned is that I have topped every exam that I have given in my life. PMT, PG entrance, then AIMS entrance. I've gotten a good rank in every one of them. Then I have mentored students for 2 decades. And what I've told you is what I've learned over the years. Why do people make mistakes? Why do people make silly mistakes? These are lack of revision. Number two, they look at the choices too fast without getting the answer in their mind, and they end up getting confused. They end up getting confused by odd names because they're doing odd man out rather than solving the question properly. These are the top 3 reasons that I feel people do silly mistakes. And silly mistakes are the ones that don't mistake them for lack of knowledge. Now try and understand. Suppose you have a question in the exam in which you have no idea about, and you do it wrong. That is not a silly mistake. That is lack of knowledge. That would require you to build up your knowledge about the topic. Silly mistakes are the ones where you have the knowledge, you know the concept, you were supposed to do it right, but you do it wrong. I hope you understand. And these are the ones which are more painful. And actually speaking, these are the ones which usually make the difference between a selected candidate and a non-selected candidate is usually silly mistakes. And I want to add a little bit more line here is, I have seen many people, when they come back after the exam, they attribute their failure to hi-fi questions, which usually even the topper is unable to do. For example, in some of the exams, there will be a question which is, nobody has ever heard about that question. When you come back, you start attributing your apparent lack of success to those questions, but in that exam, even the topper was unable to do them. So it is really the questions which are doable, which you do wrong because of various reasons called as silly mistakes, which are going to cost you your rank. So I hope you enjoy this discussion. Do write to me if you want to know anything more about the concept. But the idea is avoiding as many silly mistakes as possible is critical to succeed in a competitive exam. I wish you all the best. Do write to me in the comment sections. Thank you.